So, who of you has ever heard of PropAMM? Do you know what PropAMM is? 2 people, okay. That's going to be interesting. If you are trading on major chains like Solana, Base, and a few other chains might have the same. Currently, most of the volume is not coming from actual AMM with on-chain liquidity, but is coming from PropAMMs, which in the past were called dark pools. A PropAMM is basically a product that has been in the industry a bit in the shadow in the past months, but articles are starting to come out, and I want to introduce to you what PropAMMs are, giving a bit of background. I am from LFJ. What we do is decentralized exchanges started on Avalanche in 2021, have innovated in the sector, creating Liquidity Book, a concentrated liquidity protocol. So we know something about AMMs in general. And when PropAMM started to happen, we wanted to look deeper into what are PropAMMs doing. So the difference between PropAMMs is that liquidity doesn't live directly on a liquidity pool like traditional protocols like Uniswap or PancakeSwap that you might know, where how the normal DEXs work is that you deposit liquidity, and this liquidity is used across a curve to offer it to anyone that uses the front end, also known as the router actually of these protocols, and liquidity comes directly from the liquidity pools, and liquidity providers get a fee. The difference with PropAMMs is that liquidity actually is owned by the reserve of the PropAMM. Mostly PropAMMs currently are run by market makers or companies that have created this specific way to operate. They have somehow often unknown reserve of liquidity for major assets, and they check on off-chain, so they index on centralized exchanges the prices of selected assets and offer it in what in the past called a big call RFQ, but it's not really like that, liquidity, to anyone that wants to make a quote. So when you are making a swap on an aggregator, protocols like DavideFi is the biggest known on Solana, check what the price is supposed to be on off-chain on various centralized exchanges, offer the quote to the user, often at a very convenient price compared to on-chain liquidity, and then the user, when gets a swap, gets directly the liquidity from the PropAMM received to their wallet. Basically, the system works in a way that you have a price, which is the standard price of the centralized exchanges, and then as a user you want to get a quote. The thing is that to run a successful protocol, you need to have a reserve of these assets, and reserves can vary. So what do PropAMMs do in order for you to get the amount of assets you want, which could be unlimited at any time, but they also need to maintain inventory, is that besides what's called the central price, which is the price that the exchanges are saying, they are also calculating a possible spread. So the bigger the size of your swap, the more they apply a virtual curve to your swap. So even though the reserve is fixed and there's no real curve on the actual AMM, on the actual reserve, what's happening is that they are simulating a potential curve based on their internal pricing, and then they are offering you the amount of assets that you have requested with the simulated curve, and adding possibly a spread on top. Why will there be a spread in general? Here I am simulating a moment where just accelerated of this balance of the pool. So basically what we are looking for is, imagine you want to make a swap that will move the pool all to the left. What we know is that we are moving in this screenshot, for example, the virtual price on the curve by 53 bips, and therefore we are calculating the amount of tokens that you can actively get and offering you the quote for these assets. Why is this important? Because the vaults are aiming always to keep the liquidity at 50-50%. Let me explain this concept of how vaults of PropAMMs are working, because the thing is that PropAMMs are very obscure, and we at LFJ are building an open PropAMM, which means all documentations are actively readable, anyone can do the same simulations, anyone can, and we're opening the retail vaults, so anyone can deposit into these vaults and directly participate to the fee generations of this PropAMM. So why do we need to keep the liquidity reserve at 50-50? Because let's say that the reserve is 100K, and imagine someone wants to swap $20,000 of tokens. What a PropAMM does is that we look at the active price, and we personally from LFJ not only use centralized exchanges, but on Monad we are actually on the first block generation reading all the actual prices of any decentralized exchange available on the chain and mix the centralized exchange price and the on-chain price to provide a real price for what the true price should be, what we call the central price. Then, as we mentioned, we had a pool perfectly at 50-50, but a swap from 100K reserve moved the reserve to imbalance to 40-60. Our protocol, what it does is that it moves the spread of the pool that is in this balance, so of which we have less tokens, a bit to the side. So let's imagine that now we have the $40,000, the 40% pool. How can we incentivize the pool to go back to 50-50 as fast as possible? We apply a premium to the side that is getting emptied, so the 40%, and we apply a discount to the side that has too much liquidity, so that we are incentivizing swappers, arbitrageurs, market maker of all sorts, to try to rebalance the pool by getting the opportunity that is available from this. The purpose of the PropAMM is to always keep the reserve at 50-50 at all time, while generating the highest amount of fees at any block, but never rejects a quote. It just applies the virtual curve in case users want to swap a bigger amount from the pool that will automatically put the pool in this balance. I mentioned public PropAMM versus closed because the majority of PropAMMs out there, 100% of the PropAMMs, if you research, you will not find what they are doing. And often they are getting a bad reputation right now because given that there is no active liquidity and users are just accepting a quote, but with a spread in front of an aggregator, there are some mispractices from some nasty PropAMMs that when they are offered on the aggregator, users accept the quote, and then actually they get a worse amount because the PropAMM knows the spread that was applied and accepts that the virtual curve that they were simulating for you gets a bit nastier than the original simulation. That's why PropAMMs, besides capturing a very big portion of volume, like on Solana they were achieving almost 70% of the volume up to 1 month ago, with the leading projects capturing most of the volume. But what we are doing as a public PropAMM is indeed to make it real code that anyone can understand, anyone could technically operate, but we operate it for the users, for the pools that we are opening for this. What matters for us as a key differentiator is actually that we are building it in public so that we are not going to apply any possible deceiving practice. It's just pure math that everyone can reproduce. I'm saying that this is very important because it is not very transparent what you're looking for from a PropAMM generally. This is going to, being an open protocol is very important. You can figure out very well what matters. If you're curious to know more, you can stop me today and tomorrow. I'm DavideFi. Thank you very much for listening.